Hey, so this is an introduction on how to use use basic operators in Java. These are not logical operators. I'll get to that maybe next video, but this one is basic operators for like strings and for integers. So let's create another Java project for this. Let's call this one basic operators. Remember to use .ASCII 1.8, and let's finish. Let's get a new class. Remember, create a new class, and let's call this one operators. Let's remember always to create the main method for these basic tutorials, like for later on when you actually create objects. You may not need the main, but I'll get to that later. So remember, we have many different types of data in Java. So there's chars, there's strings, there's ints, there's longs, doubles, and booleans. So booleans are different. These are very these have different types of operators. Obviously, you can't add booleans together. So I'll get to that maybe next episode, next video. But for now, we're gonna go over the operators for these basic types of variables. So let's first start off with ints, because these are usually these are the most basic ones. So let's start with int. Let's call this one integer 1, right? And let's name that 7. And always remember to have a semicolon at the end. Integer 2. Let's put that equal to 8. And let's just print it, right? Obviously, because this computer is pretty slow, so this might take a little while. Yeah. Okay. And out the print line. Let's say integer 1 plus integer 2. So obviously, it just adds the two together, and that should get 15 in the console, right? So that obviously that's pretty basic. You can use multiply. Yeah, 56. Divide. But okay, so dividing integers, right? Okay, that's a bit more complicated. I'll get to that in a second. But also remember that I can have int result equals integer 1 plus integer 2. And I just print the result, I get 15. Yeah. Okay, so now on to doing division with integers. So with Java, if you're doing anything with integers, there's never any decimals, because it truncates the decimal point. So imagine if I store 0.5 into an integer, right? The result would actually equal 0, because it just takes the decimal point here. If it's an integer, it's like, oh, it's an integer, and it's a decimal point, I'll just remove it, and that's what it's equal to. So if I have integer 1 divided by integer 2, it should be something like 0.875 or something. But if I print it out now, I get 0, because it says, oh, okay, it's under 1, it has a decimal point, I'll just remove it, right? So, but if I take integer 2 divided by integer 1, I get 1, because it's greater than 1 now. So that's what you do with integers. However, if I have a double integer 1, right? Then you can see that this gives me an error now, because this, obviously if I divide a double by integer, it doesn't give me an integer value because it has a decimal now. So I need to change that to the double result. And if I believe this should work. If it doesn't work, I know why. But yeah, see, it does work now because I have a double integer 2 is 8, and double integer 1 is 7. Because I have a double divided by, I have an integer divided by a double now. At least one of them is a double. It converts the answer into a double and gives me this answer here. So, but I want to point out, if I have int integer 1 and int integer 2 and I divide 2, I get 1.0 because I have integer divided by integer. I always get an integer from that, even if it's a double. However, I can cast it, which is, okay, so casting is whenever you can change one variable into another. So if I have an integer here, right, integer 1, I can call this double integer 3 equals integer 3 equals, I cast it with parentheses, I call it a double integer 1. Right, that means that this integer 1, they're gonna add it, they're gonna change integer 1 into a double. Right, they're gonna change it from 7 to 7.0, because that's what you do with a double. You just add a decimal and it becomes a double. So I now change this to integer 2 divided by integer 3. I get a decimal, I get a double now, right? So I could even cast it to a double inside of this equation here, and actually give myself a double answer now, right? So that's how it works with integers, right? So now let's do it with strings. So obviously you can't multiply strings, so really the only thing you can do with string is add them together. So string 1 is AAA, string 2 equals BBB. I can just call string result equal to string 1 plus string 2, and if I print it out here, string result, and I get AABBB. That's my result. So that's basically how you do basic operations with integers and strings. But I want to show you something a bit more complicated, but it's still quite simple. So let's call integer 1 now. Integer 1 is 7, right? I'll just comment all of this out, so none of it changes integer 1, you can see. Integer 1, I mean, okay, I could just delete this all. Okay, I'll keep it there. But okay, let's put this up here then. Okay, let's say integer 1, right? So if I want to increment it by 1, right? I could do integer 1 equals integer 1 plus 1. That's how I change it by 1, right? If I want to change it by 2, I can add 2. But because, developers are lazy, they created this function where you can have plus equals 2, and that means integer 1 add 2 and it's equal to that. So this is the same. So integer 1 plus equals 2. Oops. Oh, what did I do? Okay. If I do integer 1 plus equals 2, it's equal to integer 1 equals integer 1 plus 2, right? These two are equal. So if I now print out print it out integer 1, I get 9 because it's 7 plus 2. Simple. Now, something else. Because Java developers are really lazy, if you want to increment it by 1, you could obviously do that. But it's something even simpler. You just have integer 1 plus plus, and that increments it by 1. Right? So now if I change it to that, equals that, equals integer 1 plus plus. They're all the same thing. Now if I run it, I get 8 because it's because it adds 1. One more thing that builds off of this. It's a bit more complicated, even more. But if I print it out now, right, I can say integer 1 plus plus. So this is a bit more complicated because it runs. This is what it does. It prints out integer 1, right, and then it runs this operation inside of the system.out, the println function. So I have integer 1. I print it out. I get 7. Then it increments it by running this function here, and it changes it to 8, and then I print it out again. So it should be 7 and then 8, right? That's it. So I first run whatever I need to do here, then I increment it, right? So I first do whatever I need to do with this integer, then I increment it. If you want to increment the integer, then run the function, I first put the plus plus in front, right? So if I put a plus plus in front, I get 8 because I increment the function, increment the integer, then I run system.out.println. Okay. And so, but if I do integer 1 plus equals 2, I don't think this would work. Let's see. It does work. Okay, so basically any function you put inside of here, it'll run the function. I'm not too sure about this, why this actually increments the integer, but yeah. But you just should know that for plus plus, it runs the function, then it increments it by 1. So yeah, see you next video.